The girl who stopped believing. Chicago looked beautiful in winter. From a distance, it always did. The city glittered beneath fresh snow like 1,000 diamonds scattered across black velvet. Towering buildings stretched into the gray evening sky while endless strings of golden lights reflected across frozen streets below. Tourists stood outside restaurants taking photographs. Couples walked hand in hand beneath glowing Christmas decorations. Families gathered in warm homes preparing for the holidays. To everyone else, Chicago looked alive. To Sophia Bennett, it looked cold. Beautiful things usually were. She stood alone beside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bennett Tower, 32 stories above the city. A crystal whiskey glass rested loosely in her hand. Soft classical music drifted through the penthouse behind her. The notes were elegant, perfect, artificial, much like everything else in her life. Down below, expensive cars lined the streets. Security guards stood outside the building entrance. Television vans occupied half the block. Inside the tower, hundreds of wealthy guests gathered beneath crystal chandeliers for another political fundraiser. Another celebration. Another performance. Another night pretending the powerful cared about ordinary people. Sophia stared at her reflection in the glass. 26 years old. Dark hair. Sharp blue eyes. A face that magazine photographers loved. A face that had appeared beside her father's campaign advertisements for years. The perfect political daughter. The image was a lie. The girl in the reflection looked tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. There was a difference. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Before Sophia could answer, the door opened. Her mother entered quietly. Evelyn Bennett looked flawless as always. Silver evening gown. Perfect makeup. Diamond earrings. Every detail carefully selected. Every detail carefully controlled. Sophia sometimes wondered if her mother even remembered who she was beneath all the appearances. "Your father wants family photographs before the press leaves," Evelyn said. Sophia took another drink. Then he should use one of the old pictures. Sophia. The fake smiles still look convincing. Evelyn sighed. The sound carried years of exhaustion. "Please don't do this tonight." Sophia finally turned around. "Do what?" "You know exactly what." A bitter smile crossed Sophia's face. "No, Mom. Explain it." Evelyn crossed her arms. "You've been drinking. And you promised." Sophia laughed. "I also promised God a lot of things when I was younger." The words hit harder than she intended. A shadow passed through Evelyn's eyes. Both women knew why. Daniel. Everything always led back to Daniel. Even 3 years later. Especially 3 years later. For a moment neither spoke. Outside, snow continued falling. Finally Evelyn looked away. "Your brother wouldn't want this." Sophia froze. Pain flashed across her face. Instantly. Violently. Like a knife reopening an old wound. "Don't." "Sophia. I said don't." The room became silent. Heavy. Dangerous. Sophia's fingers tightened around the glass. "He doesn't get to be your argument." Evelyn's expression softened. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" Her voice cracked. Just slightly. Enough to reveal the hurt underneath. "You only talk about Daniel when it's useful." Evelyn looked shocked. Then hurt. Then angry. "I loved him." "I know." Sophia swallowed. "So did I." The words came out almost as a whisper. For a brief second both women looked heartbreakingly similar. Two people grieving the same person in completely different ways. But neither knew how to reach the other. Anymore. Years earlier they might have cried together. Now there was only distance. Evelyn glanced toward the ballroom below. "The press is waiting." Sophia emptied the rest of her drink. "Then they can wait longer." Without another word she walked past her mother. Past the grand staircase. Past paintings worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Past marble floors imported from Italy. Everything expensive. Everything beautiful. Everything empty. The ballroom exploded with light and sound. Laughter echoed beneath enormous crystal chandeliers. Live violinists performed near the stage. Politicians shook hands. Business executives exchanged smiles. Television cameras floated through the crowd like predators searching for footage. Sophia hated every second of it. She moved toward the bar. A few guests greeted her. She ignored most of them. Others whispered after she passed. She ignored them too. Years of political life had taught her a useful skill. Pretending not to hear things. Then applause erupted from the center of the room. Sophia looked up. Her father had arrived. Senator Jonathan Bennett. The man half the country adored. Tall, confident, charismatic. A smile polished by decades of public life. The cameras loved him. Churches loved him. Voters loved him. Sophia wasn't sure anyone actually knew him. Jonathan shook hands with donors while reporters followed closely behind. Every movement looked effortless. Every word perfectly calculated. Every smile precisely measured. A master performer. The crowd parted as he approached. When his eyes found Sophia, the smile remained. But only on the surface. She recognized the irritation underneath instantly. "There she is," he announced loudly. Several guests turned. Cameras followed. "My daughter finally decided to join us." Polite laughter spread through the room. Sophia forced a smile, the kind she'd practiced since childhood. Jonathan leaned closer. His expression never changed, but his voice did. "You're drinking. I'm attending." "That's not what I asked." "It's the answer you're getting." For a moment his jaw tightened. Then the public smile returned. "Sophia, there are important people here tonight." There it was. Not concern. Not love. Reputation. Image. Always image. Sophia opened her mouth to respond. A new voice interrupted. "Senator Bennett." Jonathan turned. A man approached through the crowd. Simple black coat. No expensive watch. No designer suit. No political smile. He looked completely out of place. And somehow more comfortable than anyone else in the room. Gabriel Reed. Sophia recognized him immediately. She'd seen interviews, books, online debates. Students practically treated him like a celebrity. She never understood why. At first glance he looked ordinary. But then he smiled. And suddenly he didn't. There was something calm about him. Something genuine. A quality Sophia rarely encountered anymore. Jonathan extended his hand. "Professor Reed, thank you for inviting me." Gabriel shook his hand. Then his eyes briefly moved toward Sophia. The moment lasted only a second. Yet something about it felt strange. Most people looked at her and saw one of two things. A politician's daughter. Or a beautiful woman. Gabriel looked like he saw neither. Almost as if he noticed something deeper. Something she worked very hard to hide. It irritated her immediately. Jonathan gestured toward Sophia. "You remember my daughter?" Gabriel nodded. "We met last spring." Sophia crossed her arms. "You're the famous Christian professor." A faint smile appeared. "And you're the student who challenged my lecture." "I remember winning." Gabriel laughed softly. "I remember you leaving before the discussion ended." For some reason that answer annoyed her. Mostly because it was true. For the first time all evening, Sophia found herself interested. And that scared her more than she expected. Because curiosity was dangerous. Especially for someone who had spent years convincing herself she no longer cared. The man who hid his own darkness. The fundraiser ended after midnight. For most people, it had been a successful evening. Millions of dollars raised. Dozens of interviews completed. Countless photographs taken. By morning, news stations would broadcast smiling images of Senator Jonathan Bennett shaking hands and speaking about faith, family, and hope. The public would see exactly what they were meant to see. A perfect family. A perfect leader. A perfect life. Sophia knew better. She left the ballroom without saying goodbye. The elevator ride down felt endless. When the doors finally opened, freezing wind rushed through the entrance as she stepped outside. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the city lights. The cold immediately bit through her coat. Normally she would call a driver. Tonight she walked. The streets were quieter now. Most of the holiday crowds had disappeared. Only a few late-night restaurants remained open. A taxi splashed through slush as it passed. Somewhere in the distance a train horn echoed across the city. Sophia shoved her hands into her pockets and thought about Gabriel Reed. She hated that she was thinking about him. The conversation had lasted less than 10 minutes. Yet somehow his words refused to leave her alone. Why are you angry at God? Nobody had asked her that in years. People usually asked different questions. Are you okay? When will you move on? Have you considered therapy? But Gabriel had gone straight to the wound. Straight to the place she spent years avoiding. She stopped at a crosswalk. The light changed. Still she stood there. A memory surfaced. Daniel laughing. Daniel running through the backyard during summer. Daniel stealing cookies before dinner. Daniel promising he'd always protect her. The memory hurt. It always did. Sophia quickly pushed it away. That was another thing grief taught you. Some memories felt too sharp to touch. Even years later. Especially years later. Across the city, Gabriel Reed sat alone in his apartment. The room was simple. Bookshelves lined the walls. Stacks of papers covered the dining table. A single lamp illuminated the darkness. Outside, snow tapped softly against the windows. Gabriel loosened his tie and sat heavily in a chair. Exhaustion settled over him. Not physical exhaustion. The deeper kind. The kind that lived inside your chest. He closed his eyes. And immediately saw her. Emily. The woman he had loved. The woman he had buried. 5 years. 5 years had passed. Yet some nights felt exactly the same. The accident returned without warning. A phone call. A hospital hallway. A doctor avoiding eye contact. The moment everything changed. Gabriel opened his eyes quickly. The memories never truly disappeared. They simply waited. Waiting for quiet moments. Waiting for weakness. Waiting to remind him. His phone buzzed. A message appeared. Ethan Carter. You survived the fundraiser. Gabriel smiled slightly. Only Ethan would send something like that at 1 in the morning. He typed back. Barely. 5 seconds later another message appeared. Poor rich people. Must be difficult pretending to enjoy themselves. Gabriel laughed. A genuine laugh. Ethan always had that effect. A moment later the phone rang. Gabriel answered. You're awake. I know you, Ethan replied immediately. You wouldn't sleep after one of those events. Gabriel leaned back. You know me too well. Someone has to. Silence followed. Comfortable silence. The kind only old friends shared. Finally Ethan spoke. You met the senator's daughter tonight. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. You heard already. The internet moves faster than light. Gabriel shook his head. Nothing happened. Ethan. I'm serious. Rachel Monroe already posted photographs online. Gabriel groaned. Rachel Monroe. The journalist. The human embodiment of curiosity. If Rachel noticed something, eventually the entire city noticed too. She looked sad, Gabriel said quietly. The joking disappeared from Ethan's voice. Sophia. Yes. Most people look sad. Not like that. Gabriel stared toward the snow-covered window. He remembered Sophia's eyes. The anger. The loneliness. The exhaustion. Those things couldn't be faked. He knew because he'd carried them himself. Ethan sighed. You can't save everyone. Gabriel didn't answer. Because that wasn't what bothered him. What bothered him was how familiar her pain looked. The next morning arrived gray and cold. Sophia woke with a headache. Sunlight pushed weakly through the curtains. For several moments she remained in bed staring at the ceiling. Then reality returned. The fundraiser. Her father. Gabriel. She groaned. The last thing she wanted was another day of pretending. Unfortunately, life rarely cared what people wanted. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages. Notifications. News articles. Photos from the fundraiser. One headline caught her attention. Senator Bennett hosts record-breaking Christmas charity event. Sophia laughed bitterly. Charity. A beautiful word. One frequently used by wealthy people. She scrolled farther. Then froze. A photograph filled the screen. It showed her standing beside Gabriel near the ballroom balcony. They appeared deep in conversation. The article speculated about their relationship. Sophia nearly threw the phone across the room. Unbelievable. Another notification appeared. This one from Rachel Monroe. Journalist. Professional troublemaker. The message contained only 6 words. Interesting conversation last night. Sophia immediately ignored it. Then blocked the number. Then unblocked it. Then ignored it again. Rachel had that effect on people. By noon, Gabriel arrived at St. Augustine University. Students filled the campus despite the freezing weather. Christmas decorations hung from nearly every building. Laughter echoed across snowy walkways. For a moment he simply watched. University life carried a certain energy. A reminder that people still believed the future mattered. Sometimes Gabriel envied that. As he approached the theology building, several students waved. Others stopped to ask questions. One requested a photograph. Another wanted book recommendations. Gabriel greeted them all patiently. He genuinely cared about his students. That was why he stayed. Not for fame. Not for recognition. For moments like these. For people searching for answers. Inside the lecture hall, over 200 students filled the seats. The room quieted as Gabriel stepped onto the stage. He placed his notes on the podium. Then looked across the crowd. Good afternoon. The students greeted him warmly. Today's topic appeared behind him on a large screen. Faith During Suffering. The title immediately captured everyone's attention. Gabriel studied the room. Then began. Most people believe faith exists to explain pain. The students listened carefully. Gabriel continued. But I've discovered something different. He paused. Pain reveals faith. It doesn't create it. The room remained silent. Completely focused. Anyone can believe when life feels beautiful. He slowly walked across the stage. The real question is what remains when everything beautiful disappears. For a brief second, Sophia Bennett entered his thoughts. The grief in her voice. The bitterness. The loneliness. Then he pushed the thought away and continued teaching. Because he knew something she didn't. Healing never started with answers. It started with honesty. And sometimes, the most broken people were the closest to finding the truth. Even if they didn't know it yet. Far across the city, Sophia stared out her apartment window at the falling snow. Completely unaware that her life had already begun changing. The first threads of a story were quietly weaving together. A story involving loss, faith, secrets, love, and a truth buried so deeply that exposing it would eventually destroy powerful lives. Including her own. Like and subscribe if you like the story. The Journal in Daniel's Closet. 3 days after the fundraiser, Sophia returned to her childhood home. She hadn't planned to stay long. The house carried too many memories. Too many ghosts. Her parents were attending a political event in Washington, leaving the mansion unusually quiet. For reasons she couldn't explain, Sophia found herself standing outside Daniel's old bedroom. The door remained exactly as it had been 3 years earlier. No one touched it. No one changed it. It was a museum dedicated to grief. Slowly she opened the door. The scent of old books and cedar lingered in the air. A basketball rested beside the wall. Family photographs sat on a shelf. His guitar remained in the corner. Everything frozen in time. Sophia sat on the edge of his bed. For several minutes she simply looked around. Then she noticed something strange. A loose floorboard beneath the closet. Curious, she knelt and carefully lifted it. Underneath sat a small wooden box. Her heartbeat quickened. Inside was a leather journal. Daniel's handwriting covered the first page. "If you're reading this, Soph, something happened to me." Her hands trembled. Tears blurred her vision. She turned the page. The entries began months before his death. At first they were ordinary. School, friends, dreams. Then everything changed. One entry made Sophia's blood run cold. "Dad thinks nobody knows. But I heard the phone call. The money isn't clean. If people find out, he'll lose everything." Sophia stared at the words. Again and again. Unable to breathe. Unable to think. Her father. The senator. The champion of morality. Daniel had discovered something. Something dangerous. And according to the dates, he discovered it only weeks before the accident. For the first time in years, Sophia wasn't thinking about grief. She was thinking about truth. And truth had a way of changing everything. The investigation. Sophia contacted the last person she ever expected to trust. Rachel Monroe. The journalist arrived within an hour. By midnight they were examining records, donations, financial statements, and hidden transactions. The deeper they looked, the uglier the truth became. Charities had been used to hide illegal money. Powerful donors received political favors. Millions of dollars disappeared through shell organizations. The evidence was overwhelming. Rachel looked at Sophia across stacks of documents. "If this becomes public, your father is finished." Sophia swallowed hard. He should be. Yet saying the words hurt. Because despite everything, he was still her father. Gabriel's secret. Meanwhile, Gabriel faced a battle of his own. Sophia wasn't the only person carrying pain. For years Gabriel had hidden the truth about Emily. Everyone believed her death was an accident. It wasn't. Emily had been battling severe depression. The night she died, Gabriel had ignored 3 phone calls. 3 chances. 3 opportunities to answer. For 5 years he blamed himself. Every sermon, every lecture, every book. Behind all of it lived the same question. Could I have saved her? One snowy evening he finally told Sophia everything. Not as a professor. Not as an author. Not as a teacher. Simply as a broken man. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then Sophia took his hand. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. For the first time, both understood something important. Healing wasn't about finding perfect answers. It was about refusing to suffer alone. The fall of Jonathan Bennett. The scandal exploded across national news. Evidence surfaced. Witnesses came forward. Investigations began. Within weeks, Jonathan Bennett's political empire collapsed. Television channels that once praised him now condemned him. Donors vanished. Supporters disappeared. Friends abandoned him. Power left faster than it arrived. One evening Sophia visited him. He sat alone in his office. No cameras. No audience. No applause. Just an aging man surrounded by the ruins of his choices. For a long time neither spoke. Finally Jonathan looked up. "I wanted to build something that mattered." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. So did Daniel. The words struck harder than any accusation. Jonathan lowered his head and cried. Not for losing power. Not for losing elections. For losing his son. For losing his family. For becoming someone he barely recognized. Sometimes redemption begins at the exact moment pride dies. The letter. Months later, Sophia finished reading Daniel's journal. The final pages contained something unexpected. A letter. Written specifically for her. She read it beside Lake Michigan at sunrise. The wind carried snow across the shoreline. Her hands shook as she opened the final page. Soph, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. And if that's true, don't waste your life being angry. I know you'll want to. I know you'll blame God. Maybe you'll even blame yourself. But none of that will bring me back. What matters is how you live after loss. Not before it. You once told me light only matters because darkness exists. I think you're right. So if life gets dark, don't stop looking for light. Love people. Forgive people. Keep going. And tell Mom and Dad I love them. I'll see you again someday. Love, Daniel. By the time Sophia reached the end, tears covered the page. For years she believed grief was proof that hope had died. Now she understood something different. Grief existed because love existed first. Epilogue. The light we found. 2 years later, spring arrived in Chicago. The city no longer felt cold. Sophia stood outside a small community center overlooking the river. Children laughed nearby. Families gathered inside. A sign above the entrance read, "The Daniel Bennett Foundation." The organization helped families affected by drunk driving accidents. Thousands of lives had already been changed. Sophia smiled. Not because life was perfect. It wasn't. She still missed Daniel. Some wounds never fully disappear. But they no longer controlled her. Across the courtyard Gabriel approached carrying coffee. His hair was still messy. His smile still impossible to fake. "You're thinking again," he said. "That's dangerous." He laughed. The sound warmed her more than the sunlight. Together they watched the city. The same city, the same skyline, the same streets. Yet everything felt different. Years earlier Sophia believed silence was all that existed beyond suffering. Now she knew better. Sometimes silence wasn't empty. Sometimes it was where healing began. Gabriel slipped his hand into hers. Sophia looked toward the bright horizon. Toward the future. Toward the light. And for the first time since losing her brother, she believed she would be okay. Because the light they lost was never truly gone. It had simply been waiting to be found again. The end.